Okay, good morning, everybody. My name is Matthew Terry. I primarily work in the behavioural sector. My background is safety, full-time fire service as a firefighter, and also in the military. So I've had a fair life, as to say, with regards to behaviour, consequences, etc. Now, from delivering behavioural sessions, it didn't matter how good I was or how good the session was. When it came to the part of the session where you put a DVD on to try and connect with the audience, because after all, with behaviour, you want to create as much leverage as possible to get people to change from coming in to going out of your session, because otherwise wouldn't be a lot of point in actually running the session in the first place. So even though I knew that, and DVDs were really good, and you're about to watch a DVD in about 2 minutes time, which is an emotional and a raw story for Jason. DVDs, no matter how good they are, I felt the audience, and even though myself, even though I got it up here, I could understand it, it was always maybe an arm's distance away because the person wasn't actually in the room. Now, to create as much leverage as possible, and some of the breakthroughs that we've had during sessions, especially early days when Jason wasn't quite aware of the impact that he could be having by telling his talk, he didn't quite get why his talk was so important. But when you're getting guys who've been in the industry for years, coming up after the session, personally shaking the hand with Jason and saying, I get it now. I've been on so many safety courses and I've been on so many sessions, but now I actually get it. So working with Jason over the last 2 years has been a huge journey. And from the original when I first met Jason, who seemed like a nice guy when I met him, he's come such a long way. His family's moved forward and Jason's moving forward, so it's been a complete win-win situation. The initial, Jason, can you come out to my sessions and just speak in front of 10 or 15 people, has very much changed into 1, 2, 3, our biggest audience has been 450 people. So he's come such a long way. So my question for you is, and it took me quite a long time to get to where I am with behavioural safety, is what is behavioural safety? We've got all of the access equipment, we've got the policies, we've got the systems, and we're hearing from some excellent speakers. Is there anything else we need in the industry to make people safe? As we walk around, there's everything out there. So what does it all boil down to? It boils down to people and obviously their behaviour at the moment. When there's so many other priorities, etc., to get the job done, do they at that moment choose to be safe? We only work to our habits, and habits is the key word here with behaviour. In all the study that I've done, we work to a habit. Now, is it the habit that we created, or is it the other people's habit that we joined when we first went into the industry, or we joined that group of people? Because at the end of the day, when you talk about culture within an organisation, the culture really is in the micro areas and the people who are working there. And as a new starter, as a vulnerable, maybe a young worker, you just want to fit in. So you're going to adopt their behaviour. So if you were sterile, and I speak primarily in the power sector and the construction sector, would a sterile person actually pick up a grinder or a steel saw, looking at it for the first time, and not choose to wear a set of goggles? And no, they wouldn't, because they're a sterile person. But somewhere along the line, people are fitted in, it becomes the acceptable behaviour. If your conscious mind is talking to you, after you've set everything up, after you've measured off where it is exactly that you're going to be cutting and how you're going to cut it, at that moment when there's nothing else to do apart from move that machine towards whatever it is, at that moment maybe your mind says to you, I should have my goggles on here, I should have my dust mask on, or I should have my ear defenders on. Does the person then at that moment stop what they're doing, put the item down, walk off, put all the gear on, come back just to do that cut? So everything relates to how do they actually get there, what have they got in their habit as it is at the moment, and what are they turning up in PPE, etc. So in order to break people's habits, you've got to think to yourself, what habits have I got myself, instead of trying to fix other people? So you've got to think to yourself, well, what habits do I have, for example, at this time of year when we're in the garden? We're moving heavy pots around, we're trimming the grass, we're mowing the lawn. What do we use when we're in this situation? Do you all use safety glasses when you are trimming the lawn? Do you all use proper safety protected footwear when you are mowing the lawn yourself? How do you access your loft at home? When's the last time you checked your smoke detectors? Have you got a carbon monoxide tester next to your boiler? When's the last time that you checked the tyre pressures on your car? So before we start trying to fix other people, we've got to look at ourselves. Now, how do you break unsafe habits? The only way you can break unsafe habits is to actually speak straight to your conscious mind. So for example, of a lawnmower or a strimmer, how do you actually break your habit? What you'd have to do from here is go home and put your safety shoes maybe in a carrier bag and put them on top of your lawnmower. Or you'd have to get a pair of safety glasses and put them on top of your strimmer. So that when you're actually there on a Sunday when we've got the roast on and the veg is done and the meat's in and we've got half an hour maybe to cut the lawn, we're busy thinking about other things and we walk in and then we look at the strimmer or whatever it is and we go, safety glasses. So then at that moment, are you going to choose to be consciously competent and choose to put them on, or are you then going to take them off and just carry on and be unsafe? So carry on with this behavior will change our habits. And this is where we need to get to. It's tried, it's tested, and instead of just saying general kind of comments to people, are you safe? Well, they're going to say, yeah, try to be safe. But until we get toolbox talks actually specific to the task that we're doing and getting people to actually run through all the items that they should be doing and then run through what items do you actually do, will people get it? A quick way of doing it is to have Jason Anker in the sessions. Okay? I'll put the DVD on for you now and then you'll hear from Jason himself.
I'm Jason Anker. In January 1993, when I was 24 years old, I went to help my father-in-law on a roofing job. I wasn't a roofer by trade, but work and money were scarce and I had a young family to support. At the end of the day, we were called over to fix a leaky roof. I noticed the ladder wasn't tied on, but I said nothing. If I had, I wouldn't have spent every day since in a wheelchair.
I've worked in spinal cord injury for over 25 years now, and the hardest part of doing it is actually having that conversation with what are commonly young people and very often young men. There is absolutely no doubt that what happens to them changes their life completely and changes the life of everyone around them.
And I can remember a nurse, she came over to me and she sort of said, "Calm down. You're not doing anybody any favours by shouting." And I said, "Calm down? Now I can't feel my legs." And the doctor's called and he brings along with him one of these, a bag. And I have to wear one of these every day. I've got one of these on my leg all the time and I hate it.
What aspects of the change that occurs with paralysis do people find the most difficult to deal with? If you ask someone who was paralysed and in a wheelchair for a couple of years, they would almost invariably say that they didn't really care too much about the walking side of things, but they would wish to have their bladder and bowel control back and to have sexual functions.
We are just normal, ordinary family, and trust me, it can happen to anybody, and it does, every day.
The main reason I didn't speak up, the simple fact is I didn't think it was going to happen to me.
Stop and think before you do anything. You know, everything's got to be done safely. You only get one chance.
I had an accident in 1993, and for the best part of 18 years, since I started doing this sort of 18 months ago, I not spoke to anybody about this. You know, not to my friends, to my mum and dad. I hadn't even spoke about it to myself. And it was a chance meeting with Matt, and he actually suggested that I start coming out and talking to industry. And the next time he spoke to me, I was back in Tenerife. I thought, I'm not doing this. And initially, for probably the first 6 months of doing these talks, I absolutely hated it. I was sitting in front of people, sharing my problems out with other people. And it took about 6 months of me actually doing these talks to actually get that it's not about me. It's about me sitting in front of people, telling them all the rubbish I've been through, not the accident, living in a wheelchair. And from that moment, I actually got it. So, if you'd have asked me, probably for the first couple of years after my accident, what I wanted to do, it would be to walk again. And most people see somebody in a wheelchair and they just presume they cannot walk. Not walking is the easy bit to deal with. Now, I was 24 when I had my accident. I'm laid in a hospital bed. Been told the news I'm never going to walk again. And you actually wet the bed. You're taking the catheter out, which was attached to me, taking that out. I'm laid on a bed, not got a clue what's going on, and I actually wet the bed. And a nurse comes, and she brings with her one of these. And she says, for the rest of your life, you will wear one of these. And I says, oh, I'm not wearing one of those. Can you tell me my other option? And she says, no, there are no other options. This is your option. And I was a bit concerned, a bit sort of tearful. And the next thing, she wheeled me down to the toilet. And again, I've had to learn a procedure of emptying my bowels. So in the morning, I go to the toilet. Thank you, Matt. And I have to insert one of these up into my backside and wait about 10 minutes, and then simply put on a rubber glove and put my finger up the backside and scoop it out. And I absolutely sobbed. I thought, there is no way on this earth I can do this. And decided my problem was in hospital that I was surrounded by other people in wheelchairs, and these people had accidents like, if you can imagine, they'd been knocked off motorbikes or been involved in hit-run accidents. And they used to ask me what I'd done. I used to say to them, the reason I'm in a wheelchair for the rest of my life is because I fell 10 feet from an unsecured ladder. Now you imagine the look on their faces, and I got so embarrassed that I changed my story. I used to tell people I got blown off a roof. I was married when I had my accident with 2 young children. Been on release from hospital. Been out of hospital. Very first day, my wife says to me, I'm going into town. I'll get you some steak for your tea. And I've been in the house most of the day. And I finally got a phone call sort of late afternoon. And it was from her mum. And she said to me, there's no easy way of telling you this, but she's not coming back, she's left you. And this was after 1 day of being out of hospital. In her defence, she was 23 at the time. My daughter Abby was 3, and my son Sam was about 9 months old. She's not here to give her side of the story. I suppose it'd be quite easy for me just to sit here and slag her off. So I will. The mates did the best they could, and they sort of rallied around me. But I'd sort of put my problems to the back of my head, hoping it'd just go away. I wasn't faced up to reality. And the downside of this was I quickly resorted to the only thing blokes seem to know best of doing when they're in a big problem, which is what? Drink. And drink quickly became a problem. I'd be drinking all day long, feeling sorry for myself. My friends would be at work, and I'd only been out of hospital a matter of weeks, and I actually fell out of my chair when I was drunk and snapped one of the screws in my back. Went back into hospital and came out of hospital in the July of '93, and I lost the house where I was living. So you just imagine a 6-month period of your life where you go from married, children, job, friends, family, all supporting you, to losing everything. And I got moved into a council flat and was really struggling with my life. Quickly, drink wasn't enough. And started to knock around with some friends. It was at the time quite common knowledge that these lads all took drugs. And from initially deciding that I go along with these guys and just have a drink, to quickly descend into their life, and subsequently over the next couple of years drinking really heavily and descended into taking drugs to try and get over what I was going through. 1995, ended up having an experience after taking some ecstasy tablets and found myself in intensive care in Nottingham. Been on a coma for 17 days. Mum and Dad was living at the hospital, and if you can imagine, they would arrive at the hospital on day 15 and was greeted with the news that your son's not responding to any treatment we've tried. We suspect he's got serious brain damage. His organs are failing. You have got to consider switching the machine off. My mum and dad had had the whole initial trauma of my accident, watched their son's life disintegrate in front of her eyes for 2 years, and was now faced with the decision of switching the machine off and watching their son die. Luck for me, my dad just said no way. If my son needs 24-hour care, that's what he's going to get. And I came out of the hospital with a new sort of determination, and my symptoms was very similar to having a stroke. So I'd sort of lost use of my left-hand side of my body. I was transferred to a stroke unit, and I was actually there for 5 months, learning how to dress myself, feed myself, talk again, how to go to the toilet in the morning. And I came out of hospital with sort of a new determination. I got 2 young children, I didn't want to die, and I came across disabled sports skiing, as you see from the video, and I still hadn't dealt with my accident, but water skiing became my focus of my life. So for the next few years, I was focusing on water skiing and getting through from day to day. And in 1998, 5 years after my accident, I was made an out-of-court offer of compensation. But because I'd gone up a ladder and it wasn't tied on, it was actually for less than half the value we was going for. So I reluctantly accepted the offer. And a couple of weeks later, my sister brings me up and he says, unfortunately, the offer has been withdrawn. Might take another couple of years to sort this mess out. From that, I had a period of raising my children, trying to get on with my life. It took 14 years before I actually got paid out my compensation for my accident. 14 years basically sat at home on benefits. The compensation has given me a new focus in my life. I've got a good job now, I love what I do. I've had some magical experience I've done since my accident. Water skiing obviously, parachute jumps, micro-lighting, scuba diving, many magical experiences I never would have done before my accident. And not one has come close to making up for being in a wheelchair. As I always say, there is nothing good about being in a wheelchair, apart from shoes. And as my 18-year-old son pointed out, it's all right for you, Dad, your shoes are always like brand new. So in his wisdom, my son has found out the only good thing about being in a wheelchair is that you get cracking value out of your shoes. And that is it. My talk normally goes on for about 45 minutes, and obviously today we're slightly limited by time. So if there's any questions you want to ask me or anything afterwards, please feel free to come and see us at the back of the room. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you.
I hope you don't mind me asking what you thought of the presentation there on the top from Jason.
It's very good. I had a little chat with him before, and yes,
very emotional. Yeah, thanks.
It was really, really enlightening.
Yeah,
very good, excellent.
Very emotional,
yeah.
You know, the impact. Hard hitting, you know, trying to see the effects, which a lot of people forget, and how, you know, your life can change so much. Very useful in our industry.